Remember Facebook Official? Is that a thing still? Since the dawn of Web 2 and social media, we have looked to centralized platforms to help us establish social consensus around everything from relationship status to the quality of the stuff we make. And over time, that reliance on platforms has trickled into, well, fucking everything. But we don't have time to talk about everything today, so let's focus on what I think of as digital stuff. Videos, photos, music, digital art, blogs and articles, things that exist natively in a digital format, more or less. So let's talk about how we have absolutely played ourselves by handing over our digital stuff to platforms, how we can unplay ourselves, and what the future of art and creative media looks like on a platformless web. Okay, let's set the stage here. Today's internet is a clusterfuck of separate platforms that all house the content and data of their users in their own separate silos. And at this point, the idea of a walled garden isn't really new, and in fact, it's the internet's go-to business model. Bring users to your platform, lock everyone in by forcing them to create their connections and post their content onto the platform itself, make sure they can't take those things elsewhere, very important, and then monetize everyone's attention by replacing as much visible area as possible with ads. A tale as old as time, or at least as old as Yahoo. And while these platforms have established themselves as good distributors of digital stuff because there's lots of users there already, they've also established themselves as something else that's not as good. Platforms have become the internet's publishers. This is gonna sound super obvious, but in order for me to post and distribute this video on YouTube, I needed to upload it to YouTube. And in doing so, I made YouTube the de facto publisher of this video. While I'm not technically handing over copyright of the video to YouTube, I am, for all intents and purposes, handing over ownership. I've locked this video into YouTube's walled garden, and if I want to make any money from it, I now have to play by YouTube's rules. First, I have to cater to their ever-changing algorithm in hopes that people actually see this video. I also have to accept the fact that views are the atomic unit of value. Truth and artistry? Get wrecked. It's clicks or nothing. And arguably the most important factor, I'm granting YouTube the right to monetize my video. I am literally handing them the thing that I just made, making them the financial recipient via their ad revenue system, and then hoping that if I can rack up enough view bucks, they'll let me swap some out for some of the real money that they're making off of all the stuff that we're creating for them. And what we end up with is a system that incentivizes algorithm pleasing, attention stealing, and click hunting over, I don't know, making something that you actually want to create. And even if you do create something that meets all that criteria, that doesn't necessarily lead to any financial compensation. Your capital A agreement with YouTube does not entitle you to any payments. It's right there in their terms of service. This is partly because YouTube can't guarantee that their advertisers will want to run ads on every video, regardless of how popular it is and how many millions of users it brings to the platform. And I'm gonna stick with picking on YouTube for the rest of this video for simplicity's sake, but a lot of this is more or less the same across other media platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and even blogs and journalism sites that rely on Google Display ads. To fully illustrate this issue with our reliance on platforms and their reliance on the ad revenue system, we need to look no further than currently filing for bankruptcy Vice. Vice's edgy journalism videos on taboo topics racked up hundreds of millions of views on YouTube, and everyone from Disney to Fox threw hundreds of millions of dollars their way because they thought Vice was going to revolutionize storytelling and journalism. Unfortunately for Vice, they never really held the keys to their own success. The digital stuff they were creating was deemed valuable by a shitload of people based off of those sweet view bucks, but at the end of the day, they had no real way of capturing tangible value around the digital products they were creating. Now, the YouTube ad revenue alone was never going to catch up to Vice's 10-figure valuation, but Vice was so heavily reliant on other platforms for publishing their product that it was a real slap in the face when YouTube began demonetizing their videos. As it turned out, YouTube's advertisers didn't want their ads shown alongside deep dives into cults, porn, underground drug scenes, and a cannibal. Fair enough. For the record, old Vice was sick. I'm not at all attacking their creative choices pre-2020 or so anyway, but the fact that their publisher was able to simply decide that the company's core product and the attention that it was racking up was no longer exchangeable for actual money underlines the issue here. This business model is fucking broken. Vice created digital stuff that their audience deemed valuable, but the tools available to them to monetize their product were absolutely inadequate. Of course, there are plenty of people creating videos and other content and uploading them to platforms with no desire for any kind of financial compensation, and that's fine. But in 2023, digital media is no longer just a world of obscure home videos and memes or a channel for marketing materials. The things we create and interact with on the internet have become huge parts of our lives, and countless individuals and organizations are creating entire businesses around digital stuff. Digital stuff is real stuff, but up until this point, there hasn't been any real infrastructure built to support it. Even with this video that you're watching right now, because I knew I'd be publishing it to YouTube and Twitter, that affected the way in which I made the video from the time I started writing the script. I've had to play by all of their rules, and I knew that I'd just be handing over ownership the second I clicked publish. But here's the M. Night Shyamalan. I didn't publish this video on YouTube. I published it on Ethereum. If you have no idea what Ethereum is, or even if you know exactly what Ethereum is, please allow me to quickly explain it or reframe it in the context of digital stuff. Ethereum is a blockchain, which just means it's an ongoing record of transactions that anyone can view and add their own transactions to, and there's a bunch of math and computer stuff happening in the background to ensure that nobody can create false transactions or change existing ones. It's like a universal tracking sheet that just shows who is interacting with who and who owns what stuff. And importantly, Ethereum isn't owned or controlled by any centralized platform or company. Instead, it relies on an expansive network of individuals and organizations from around the world who all work together to keep Ethereum running. If you hear someone refer to blockchain as being decentralized, that's what they're talking about. And here's where it gets interesting. Ethereum is connected to decentralized storage providers like Arweave and IPFS. These are similar to traditional cloud storage providers, but because they are built in a decentralized manner, meaning no centralized platform controls them, Arweave and IPFS do not own or control the stuff that we upload to them. And when we combine these decentralized storage providers with Ethereum, we get something really interesting. We get a new layer of the internet, one that sits further down the stack than today's media platforms and allows anyone to create anything without going through a platform. In a nutshell, I uploaded this video to Arweave from my Ethereum account, and a transaction that links to the video was then added to Ethereum to permanently reflect that. This video now exists as a sovereign asset that cannot be deleted or altered by any of the platforms that it might be shown on. It's a digital thing that just exists on the internet. It's an internet good. And now that I have this asset, this digital good, I can bring it to YouTube or Twitter or wherever you might be watching this and use these platforms to help distribute it. But the existence and ability to monetize this video does not rely on these platforms because it exists outside of them. The platforms are no longer the publishers. So now that we've freed our digital stuff from platforms and their ad revenue scheme, how can we capture value around them? For the first time, real infrastructure is being created that can treat digitally native stuff like real stuff. And as someone who has spent most of their life creating and interacting with digital stuff, this is really fucking exciting. But along with creating new infrastructure and types of goods comes the need to create business models around those goods. Some of these are already kind of established, like artists creating one-of-ones or limited edition artworks and then just selling them to collectors who just like the art or want to support them. You also have digital collectibles that give their holders access to member-only clubs, events, or some other sort of perk. Those totally work too, but just like memberships in the physical world, that access is only as valuable as the thing that it gives you access to. So mileage will vary. And past that, none of us really know what we're doing with this stuff yet. There's also the fact that all of this is still super new and experimental. Blockchains, NFTs, tokens, all of it. Regardless of how much money has been put into these ecosystems, none of this is set in stone, and anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is full of shit. Critics will say that blockchains are solutions looking for a problem. And fuck, maybe they're right. But for internet native creators whose core product is a digital thing like a video, being reliant on today's platforms is not an option. We can and should use them to distribute our work and reach new audiences, but they cannot be seen as the core places to capture value around digital goods. The traditional train of thought around digital media is that it really just acts as a marketing channel, a place to pique interest and then drive people to purchasing a real good, like a shirt. But now that we can treat internet goods in a similar way to physical goods, that changes things, right? We can finally create digital stuff outside the influence and boundaries of today's walled gardens. Our digital stuff can finally be ours. So what is keeping us from creating an entirely new digital world where we decide what we create and we decide what we do with those creations? Nothing. It's already here.